I wasn't expecting the wall to bleed. At first, it looked like rust. A thin brown streak trickling down the inside of the closet, right where the drywall met the floorboards. But when I pressed a paper towel against it, it came away red and tacky. Behind the stain, the wall felt soft, almost hollow. I'd bought the house 2 days ago. It was old, quiet, perfect. The neighbors had called it the Green Place, though no one could tell me who the Greens were or why the place had sat empty for 9 years. When the sun went down, the house changed. It wasn't the creaks. Every old home does that. It was the rhythm. The sounds came in patterns like something breathing behind the walls. Tonight, curiosity got the better of me. I took a box cutter and sliced into the damp drywall. A small square fell out, revealing a dark cavity filled with dust, cobwebs, and a folded yellow paper wedged between the studs. It was brittle, the ink faded but legible. Across the top, written in jagged block letters, it said, RUS for the house. My stomach turned as I read them. Do not stay in the hallway after 1:23 a.m. If you hear knocking from inside the walls, do not answer. Never open the basement door after midnight. If you see her, pretend you don't. Always leave a light on in the attic. There were smudges near the bottom, maybe fingerprints, maybe something darker. I laughed nervously, but it sounded wrong in the empty house. The air felt heavy, humid, as if the walls were breathing slower now, listening. Then something knocked inside the drywall. Once. Twice. I froze, paper still in my hand. A third knock came, deeper, deliberate, from the exact spot where I'd cut the hole. The overhead light flickered. I looked back down at the note. There was a 6th line forming beneath the 5th, letters appearing one by one in fresh, wet ink. 6. Don't read this out loud. And before I could even breathe, something inside the wall whispered my name. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I swore I could still hear the knock. Slow, steady, patient. It wasn't the kind of noise that fades into the hum of an old house. It waited. By dawn, my nerves were wrecked. I told myself it was pipes, wood settling, my imagination, anything. But the note sat on the kitchen table, its paper still damp where the new ink had bled through. The 6th rule, the one that wrote itself, glistened faintly like it had been written in blood instead of ink. I thought about throwing it away, burning it, but some irrational instinct told me that would make things worse. So I folded it neatly and slid it back into the hole in the wall. When night came again, I couldn't resist testing it. A mix of fear and curiosity, the kind that makes you peek under the bed after convincing yourself there's nothing there. At exactly 1:23 a.m., I stood in the hallway. My phone's clock ticked over the minute, and for a breath, nothing happened. The house was still, the air thick. I exhaled, half laughing at my own paranoia. Then the temperature dropped. A low hum rose from somewhere below the floorboards, vibrating through my feet. The lights dimmed. I turned to head back to my room and froze. At the end of the hall stood a figure. She wasn't there a second ago. Tall, thin, hair hanging over her face, the skin of her hands stretched too tight over the bone. Her nightdress was the color of old linen torn at the hem. She didn't move. Didn't breathe. I remembered the 4th rule. If you see her, pretend you don't. My breath caught. I looked down, staring at the floorboards, refusing to move. The hum grew louder, closer. The wood under my feet creaked as if someone were walking toward me step by step. The air smelled like rot and copper. When the noise stopped, she was right beside me. I could feel the weight of her presence, the cold pressing against my side. I whispered to the empty air, "I'm not looking." Then, just as suddenly, she was gone. The hallway lights brightened. The hum faded. On the wall beside me, a single wet handprint appeared, long, skeletal fingers pressed into the paint. And above it, in dripping letters, a new line formed. 7. You broke the 1st rule. Now she knows you. The morning after the encounter felt unreal. The sunlight poured through the kitchen window, warm and ordinary, but the memory of that handprint clung to my mind like frost. I scrubbed at the wall until my arm ached, yet the stain refused to fade. The marks weren't just on the paint, they were in it, sunk deep like a bruise under the skin of the house. I told myself it had to be some trick of moisture or mold. Maybe I'd imagined more than I saw, but as I stood there catching my breath, I heard something soft behind the wall, a faint tapping like fingernails brushing wood. I froze. The sound came again. Slow, deliberate, like someone tracing the inside of the plaster with their fingertips. The note's rules echoed in my mind. If you hear her whisper, don't answer. But it wasn't whispering, not yet. I tried to distract myself with work, emails, unpacking, anything. By dusk, I'd almost convinced myself the night before had been stress and shadows. Then, as the sun dipped below the trees, the house exhaled, a deep groan that rattled the pipes and shuddered the floorboards. When I looked toward the hallway, the handprint was gone. In its place, the wallpaper had bubbled slightly, and faint letters seemed to form beneath the surface. I leaned closer, and that's when I heard it. A whisper. My name. So soft it barely disturbed the air, yet it was unmistakable. I staggered back, shaking my head. No, I muttered to the empty hall. No, I didn't hear that. The whisper came again, drawn out and desperate. Please, listen. It was a woman's voice, hoarse, trembling, full of pain. My throat went dry. Against every instinct, I whispered back, What do you want? The house went silent. A heartbeat later, the temperature plunged. The lights flickered, and the note, the one I'd sealed back into the wall, lay on the floor at my feet. It had unfolded itself. The edges were blackened now, as though singed by flame, and another line had been added in the same dripping ink. 8. If you speak to her, she will follow you into your dreams. That night, when I finally dared to sleep, I dreamed of the hallway, and she was waiting for me there, closer this time, her face half visible, smiling with teeth that weren't quite human. I woke drenched in sweat, my sheets tangled around me like a cocoon. The dream still clung to my senses, vivid as if I'd lived it moments ago. The hallway stretched endlessly in the dark, the wallpaper peeling like dead skin, and at the far end, she waited. The woman, her face was pale, almost luminous, her eyes black pools that seemed to pull light into them. Her hair hung wet and stringy across her cheeks, and her dress, once white, was now stained with something dark and wet. I couldn't move, couldn't scream. I only watched as she whispered my name again and again, each time a little louder, until it became a rasping chant that followed me even after I woke. I stumbled into the bathroom and splashed water on my face, gripping the sink until my knuckles went white. My reflection looked different, hollow, older somehow. Behind me, the light flickered once, then steadied. The faint smell of smoke lingered, though nothing burned. The house was awake. Every creak, every sigh of the floorboards felt deliberate, like it was listening. I tried to ignore it, tried to focus on anything else. But then I saw it, another note. This one slid halfway under my bedroom door. My hands shook as I picked it up. The handwriting was the same, uneven and jagged. Don't let her touch you, even in dreams. A cold realization struck me. Someone or something was updating the list. I tried to leave the house that morning. I made it to the front door, grabbed the handle, but it wouldn't turn. The key stuck fast, the metal hot against my skin like it had been left in fire. I yanked, twisted, even kicked it, but the lock refused to give. When I turned around, the living room light was on. I hadn't left it that way, and there she was, not in the flesh, not fully, but her reflection shimmered faintly in the mirror above the fireplace, her head tilted slowly, her lips moving soundlessly. My heart hammered as I backed away, unable to tear my gaze from hers. Then she raised a hand and pressed it against the glass. The surface rippled like water. And my own reflection smiled back, a second too late. I didn't sleep after that. Every sound seemed amplified. The slow tick of the clock, the faint hum of the refrigerator, the wind scraping tree branches against the roof. The words on the back of my bedroom door glared at me. You let her in. I stayed curled on the edge of the bed until dawn, waiting for sunlight to burn away the night's madness. But when the first rays spilled through the curtains, they only revealed something worse. The hallway was covered in footprints. Bare, wet footprints, leading from my door, down the stairs, and vanishing at the front entrance. They were small, delicate, a woman's. At the bottom of the stairs, I found the note again, the same one I'd left on the kitchen counter last night, but now new words were added beneath Rule 9, scrawled in a trembling hand. The smell hit in this house had one at Schaufhurst, damp, finally metallic, and opened the door slowly. The air that drifted out hooked it and opened the door slowly. The air that drifted out was cold, wrong, like the breath of something old that had been waiting too long in the dark. A single bulb swung from the ceiling, barely lighting the steps below. I took one hesitant step down, then another. Halfway down, I heard her. A whisper, low, cracked, pleading. He wouldn't let me out. I froze mid-step. My pulse thundered in my ears. The bulb flickered violently, then went out. In the blackness, something moved. A slow shuffle went against the concrete floor. I shoved the latch down. My chest heaved. The house fell silent again. As if by the next morning, the house no longer felt like mine. Every corner seemed to pulse with a quiet, watchful presence. I'd stopped trying to convince myself it was just paranoia. The rules were real. The woman was real. I spent most of the morning staring at the basement door, afraid to breathe too loud. The air smelled faintly of damp earth and something sweeter, like rotting flowers. The door remained open just a crack, as if daring me to look again. But instead, I looked for answers. I dug through every drawer, every box the previous owner had left behind. Most of it was junk. Yellowed papers, rusted nails, old paint cans, until I found a faded manila envelope wedged behind the refrigerator. It was marked in smudged pencil, "For whoever comes next." My stomach turned as I opened it. Inside were newspaper clippings, dated almost 30 years ago. The headline on the first made my blood run cold. "Local woman found dead in home basement. Husband missing." The article described her as 32 years old, schoolteacher, last seen alive by neighbors who heard strange, violent noises from the house late one night. Police found her body at the bottom of the basement stairs, but no trace of her husband. And then I saw the photo. Her eyes were unmistakable, the same hollow blackness I'd seen in my dreams. Another clipping detailed a rumor that before she died, Clara had been hearing voices in the walls, claiming her husband was trying to summon something. Locals believed she'd gone mad. But beneath the stack of papers, there was something else. A torn piece of lined paper, written in that same jagged handwriting as my notes. Rule 1, don't listen to the walls. Rule 2, never go down after dark. The first two rules. The beginning. My hands trembled as I realized these weren't warnings written by a stranger. They were hers. A sudden knock echoed from the basement. Soft, rhythmic, deliberate. I stepped closer, unable to stop myself. Another knock. Then a voice, whispering through the crack in the door, tender and broken. "Please, he's still here." The light above flickered. I quote, "The air thickened with the scent of damp soil and decay." And then, faintly, from somewhere deep below the house, I heard the scrape of another door, one that shouldn't exist. Something else had just woken up. By noon, I packed a bag. I didn't care about rules, didn't care about the whispers in the walls. I just wanted out. But when I lifted my phone, the screen showed no service, not a single bar. I walked from room to room, even stepped outside the front door, or tried to. The knob wouldn't budge. It didn't even rattle. The house wasn't just haunted, it was alive. I felt watched, as though the walls were waiting to see what I'd do next. I tried the windows, nailed shut, every single one. Even the glass seemed thicker than before, like ice layered over ice. Desperate, I went to the attic. Maybe I could signal for help from there. The air grew heavy as I climbed, dust swirling like breath in the dim light. I flicked the switch. Nothing. The bulb was dead. Mom. The only light came from a small round window at the far end. I crossed the room, crunching over old newspapers and boxes. Then I noticed one box wasn't dusty. It looked recently moved. Inside were photographs, hundreds of them, all of the same woman, Clara Hensley, standing in different rooms of this very house. In every picture, she stared directly at the camera, her expression blank. Her eyes seemed darker in each photo, until in the last few they were pitch-black voids. Behind the final photo, a note. "He's not gone, he's beneath." He made me write the rules. I nearly dropped it. The sound of footsteps echoed below me. Soft, slow, deliberate. Someone was in the hallway. I crouched near the attic door, peering through the thin crack. The stairs below creaked under invisible weight. Then a shadow moved into view, tall, uneven, shifting like smoke. The air turned cold. My breath misted. It stopped at the base of the attic steps. "Clara," I whispered before I could stop myself. The shape twitched. The stairs groaned once, twice, then silence. When I finally opened the door again, no one was there. But every photograph in the attic had been rearranged. Now they all faced the door. And a new one lay on top of the pile. My picture, taken from the hallway below. My eyes caught mid-blink, mouth slightly open. On the back, in smeared ink, Rule 11, don't look up when he's behind you. I couldn't stay still. Every creak from the floor, every shift of the air made my nerves jolt like live wires. The photo with my face haunted me more than the ghost ever could. Someone had been in the house with me, or something had been watching close enough to take that picture. By dusk, the rules weren't just warnings anymore. They were commands. The last note's words echoed in my head. Don't look up when he's behind you. But I had to know who he was. The basement door stood open again, wide this time, breathing cold into the hall. I knew I shouldn't go down, but the house felt like it was guiding me, air currents pushing gently at my back, faint whispers in the walls urging, "Come see." The smell hit first. Damp stone, mold, and something metallic. The air grew thicker the deeper I went. The beam of light cut across the floor, catching old stains on the concrete, stains too dark and too old to be rust. At the far wall, the flashlight revealed something new, a wooden hatch I hadn't seen before, built into the floor, sealed with heavy nails. I knelt, brushing away layers of dust. The surface was carved with shallow marks, letters, half erased. I leaned closer. "H.E. Help. Us." The words were gouged into the wood with something sharp. My pulse pounded in my throat. I wanted to run, but curiosity won. I grabbed the crowbar from the tool rack and pried at the edge. The nails groaned and came loose one by one. When the last one popped free, the hatch shifted, and something beneath breathed. A long, rattling inhale, like lungs that hadn't drawn air in years. The flashlight flickered, and the floor beneath me throbbed. I stumbled back just as a black hand, thin, slick, impossibly long, reached up through the gap. Its fingers scraped the concrete, dragging deep grooves as it searched blindly for me. The smell of rot filled the air. Then I heard her. Clara's voice, trembling, distant. "You shouldn't have opened it. He remembers." I slammed the hatch shut and fled up the stairs. The door wouldn't close this time. Something pressed from below, pushing it back open with slow, steady force. From the darkness beneath came a low whisper. Not hers. A man's. Rule 12 was mine. The words echoed in my head long after the voice faded. Rule 12 was mine. I hadn't written that down. Clara hadn't either. Whoever he was the one finishing the list. That night the house didn't sleep. The walls groaned like shifting bones. The floorboards quivered under unseen footsteps that moved from room to room. Never fast, always deliberate. I could hear him breathing through the vents. I stuffed them with towels, but it didn't help. His voice seeped through anyway, low and calm, like he was whispering from inside the walls. "Follow my rules," he said. "I'll let you stay." I pressed my palms over my ears, but the words drilled through. Every mirror in the house began to cloud, as if someone were breathing just on the other side of the glass. In the kitchen, the one above the sink dripped with condensation. Though the air was freezing, when I wiped it clean, there were words written beneath the fog. R-U-E well 12. Don't leave. That was when I understood. The rules weren't about survival. They were ownership. Clara hadn't been trying to protect anyone. She'd been trying to appease him. I tried the door again. It opened this time. I almost cried from relief as the night air hit my face. I ran barefoot down the front steps into the road. The gravel cut into my feet. The wind stung my skin, but I didn't care. The house shrank behind me, its windows dark and still. I reached the mailbox at the end of the drive before I dared to look back, and that's when I saw it. My house wasn't dark anymore. Every window was glowing faintly red, pulsing like a heartbeat. The sound came next. Low, guttural, wet, a growl that vibrated through the ground. Then the front door opened. Clara stepped out, or what was left of her. Her face was pale as paper, eyes black and endless. She raised her hand slowly, pointing at me. Behind her, in the doorway, something vast shifted, tall, shadowed, with arms that stretched too long for a man's frame. I stumbled backward. But the mailbox beside me creaked open. I don't remember running back to the house. One moment, I was standing in the road. The next, I was inside again. Door shut, lights off, heart pounding. The night outside had vanished, replaced by the faint hum of static, like the air itself was trying to erase what I'd seen. Every clock in the house had stopped at 3:17. The notes, the rules, they were everywhere now. Taped to the mirrors, tucked under plates, nailed to the walls. Some I'd never seen before, each written in a different hand. I tore them down one by one, desperate to find the original. The house shuddered with each rip, dust falling from the ceiling like ash. Then I found one on the bedroom mirror that made my stomach twist. Rule 14, you can't leave because you already didn't. I stared at the words, reading them over and over until they stopped making sense. The reflection behind me began to move, slower than I did, like it was thinking for itself. When I turned, the room was empty, but my reflection stayed, head tilting slowly to one side. Its mouth opened. "You followed the wrong rules," it said in my voice, distorted like a tape being stretched. The mirror cracked down the middle. My reflection splintered into 2, 3, 4 versions of me, each whispering in unison, "He's rewriting you." I stumbled backward, knocking over a lamp. It didn't shatter, it melted. The floorboards rippled under my feet as if breathing. The air thickened, every breath heavy and wet. The hallway stretched longer than it should have. The pictures on the wall changed, first empty frames, then scenes of me inside the house, standing in places I hadn't been yet. At the end of the hall, a door I'd never seen before waited, painted black, handle cold and slick. The room beyond was an exact copy of my living room, but wrong. The colors were faded, the light too dim, everything moving slightly, as if seen underwater. And sitting on the couch was Clara, motionless, head bowed. She raised her eyes to me, black, endless. "He's fixing the story," she whispered. "You're becoming part of it." Behind her, the walls began to pulse with faint red light, and I realized I could hear my heartbeat coming from inside them. And it wasn't beating alone. The red light bled from the walls like veins under skin, pulsing with each of my breaths. Clara didn't move. She only stared at me with those hollow eyes that shimmered faintly like oil on water. "What is he?" I whispered. Her head twitched once. "He's the author." The word chilled me deeper than the air ever could. She gestured to the walls around us. The wallpaper began to peel itself back, curling away to reveal lines of text written beneath. Words burned into the plaster. I stepped closer. They were sentences, paragraphs, chapters, my thoughts, my words. The house was writing me. Every decision I'd made since moving in, each hesitation, every rule followed or broken, was etched into the walls in perfect detail. And below it all, in darker ink, were corrections, changes, edits. He screamed, he ran. He stayed. "I tried to stop him," Clara said softly. "He rewrites everything that comes here, every life, every mistake. The rules are how he keeps us on the page." I backed away. "You're saying this isn't real?" Clara smiled weakly. "Real enough to hurt." The floor groaned. Words began to appear beneath our feet, crawling up from the wood grain like living ink. Itchy, I as awake. The walls trembled, the ceiling cracked. From the fissures above, a dark liquid dripped, thick as tar. The lights flickered violently, then burst, plunging us into the glow of that blood-red heartbeat. Then I heard him. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, deep and resonant like 1,000 overlapping whispers. "You broke the order," it said. "You read what wasn't written for you." A figure formed in the red haze, tall, draped in shifting shadows. His face was a blur, constantly erasing and redrawing itself. Every few seconds, it almost became mine. He stepped closer, dragging long, inky fingers across the wall. Each touch carved words into it. Rule 15, don't look at me. I couldn't look away. The room distorted, spinning between versions of itself. Day and night, flickering like a strobe, walls breathing, floors bleeding words. Clara screamed as the shadow reached for her. "You can't rewrite what's already finished," she cried. But the shadow only smiled, its shape stretching toward me. "Then I'll start a new draft," it said. The floor split open beneath my feet. I fell into black ink, sinking, suffocating, the sound of a pen scratching endlessly somewhere above. I woke on the floor of my living room, coughing up something thick and black. Ink. It stained my hands, my shirt, the floor beneath me. My flashlight lay shattered beside me, flickering weakly. The house was silent. No heartbeat in the walls, no whispers, no Clara. I sat up, dizzy, every movement feeling slightly delayed, like I was seconds behind myself. The wallpaper had changed again. The words that once crawled across it were gone. In their place, one fresh sentence stretched from floor to ceiling, written in wet, glistening ink. "Rule 16, finish the story." My throat tightened. "No," I said aloud. "I'm done." But when I turned toward the door, it wasn't there anymore. Neither were the windows. Just endless walls, all covered in more words. My words. Every thought I'd had since moving in. Every description, every fear. The house was looping my story back at me. Then I saw Clara. She stood in the corner, her body thin and flickering like bad film. "He never writes endings," she whispered. "He just replaces them." "Where is he?" I asked. Her smile was sad. "Where you'll be soon." The air grew heavy, electric. A familiar voice spoke from behind me. Calm, deliberate, familiar enough to make my stomach twist. It was my own voice. "You broke too many rules," it said. "Now you belong here." The figure standing there was me, identical except for the eyes, black and endless. He held a piece of paper in his hand and began to read. Rule 17, there can only be one. The floor rippled under my feet. The wall started to bleed text again, the ink rising and swirling into shapes, scenes replaying like film reels, me finding the first note, opening the basement, hearing Clara's voice. The house was rewriting it all, this time without me in it. I lunged at my double, but my hands passed through him like smoke. The ink surged upward, wrapping around my arms, my chest, pulling me into the walls. I screamed, but no sound came out, only the scratch of a pen on paper. The last thing I saw before the darkness closed in was my reflection, smiling faintly as it folded the note in half and placed it beneath a loose floorboard. The ink sealed me in,